Okay, so have you ever started a show expecting, a cozy, sweet romance and ended up with something else entirely? Today, we're going to dive into the K drama Can This Love Be Translated? Because this is a show that promised one thing and delivered a completely confusing, but honestly pretty compelling emotional roller coaster. And I mean, that quote right there, it just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures what it feels like to watch the show. Just that jarring whiplash between what you thought you were signing up for and the absolutely wild ride you actually got. So let's back up and set the stage. At first, everything about this drama screamed light, fun, romantic comedy. You know the vibe. Cute, charming, just perfect for a chill night in. Right, so you go in expecting some sweet airport flirting, maybe some cute misunderstandings, all with that soft background music, a nice slow fall into love. But instead, you get emotional whiplash, what feels like a surprise psychology lecture, and a plot that is way more like an anxiety dream. The show just completely flips the script on you. And this brings us to that major turning point, that moment where the cute rom-com suddenly takes a very sharp, very unexpected detour into some much, much heavier territory. Yeah, it's right around episode 5. You're sitting there, no longer relaxed on your couch, just wondering how this lighthearted story about a translator and a famous actress suddenly turned into this super complex psychological drama. So here's how it all goes down. Our main character, Muhei, is under this immense amount of stress, which then leads to hallucinations. And from there, a completely new persona develops. And this alter ego, it just starts taking over her body as casually as you or I would switch Netflix profiles. It's a sudden, kind of shocking shift. And this really puts it into perspective, right? Any idea of a romantic fantasy just completely vanishes. The whole situation turns into something genuinely unsettling and stressful, not just for the characters, but for us watching at home. So with all this chaos going on, you have to ask, where does that leave our male lead, Ho Jin? Well, his role quickly turns into this impossibly complicated balancing act. I mean, this poor guy is in an impossible situation. He's trying to build a real relationship with Muhi, but at the same time, he's dealing with her alter ego, who has a totally different personality and seems to, frankly, enjoy making his life difficult. So he has to be a professional, a potential lover, and basically a 24/7 security guard. And honestly, has a truer statement ever been made about a drama character? The amount of emotional and physical labor this man is putting in goes way, way beyond the normal job description of love interest. And all this leads to this incredibly frustrating push and pull dynamic. Every single time they get close to a real confession, to a real moment, one of them pulls back. It's like typing out a really long, heartfelt text message, agonizing over every word, and then just deleting the whole thing. And this is where, as a viewer, you really start to feel that same emotional limbo. You get their trauma, you get their fear, but at the same time, you feel like your own patience is stuck in a very complicated situationship with the show's choices. Just when you think things can't get any more frustrating, the show introduces what might be its biggest narrative flaw, the one that really, really tested the audience's investment. So much of Muhi's trauma is built around the idea that her parents are gone. Then, out of nowhere, we find out they're alive. The reveal feels like finding out a huge, defining breakup that shaped your entire personality was based on a complete misunderstanding. It changes everything. So this has to be it. This has to be the big climax we've all been waiting for, the emotional peak of her entire journey, the moment she finally confronts her mother. It happens off screen, yeah. After all that buildup, all that emotional investment we put in, they just skip it. It's just a massive narrative letdown. This analogy is just perfect. It's exactly like you put in all the work, you did all the emotional studying to get to this point, and then the show just turns to you and says, yeah, it doesn't matter. The sense of anticlimax is just huge. So, after all the whiplash, all the unexpected psychology deep dives, and all those narrative frustrations, we finally get to the final verdict. And this is the central paradox of the whole show, right? Because despite all the very valid criticisms and the roller coaster of emotions, there was something undeniably compelling about it. So why? Well, it really comes down to a few key things. First off, the chemistry between the leads felt incredibly real, and it grounded you in their story no matter how wild it got. Second, the travel cinematography was just stunning, a real visual escape. And finally, at its heart, the core idea about translating not just words, but trauma and love was genuinely smart. It was an ambitious concept, even if the execution got a little messy. Ultimately, the show's identity was its own inconsistency. It never just settled into one genre. Watching it really was like listening to a playlist on shuffle, jumping from a sweet love song straight into a dark, intense true crime podcast, and then right back again. And that really is the best way to describe it. This show was never just a simple love story. It was an exploration of love right in the middle of some intense emotional turbulence. And it absolutely refused to give you a seatbelt. A wild, frustrating, and somehow a really beautiful ride.